What's great about embracing yourself and your story is that it's unique to you. I mean, like, I can't tell your story, right? Because I have not done the things that you have done, and I don't have the perspective that you have. And so when people can lean into that, they can really make some great connections. 85% of Americans struggle with self-confidence.
Oh, wow.
Like 85%. Wow. And then you kind of dissect that further, like, okay, well, why would people have low self-confidence? But yeah, I just think so many people, they don't know how to do that inner work.
I think if I had never left Germany, I don't think I would be where I'm at anywhere remotely. Because I think, leaving that initial sort of comfort of like what you know, and then like making a life for yourself in another country, like on another continent. And then, carving out your own space and reshaping yourself. That was sort of that probably process for me, having a lot of new experiences in a fast way too. I just believe like you gotta be who you are, and if someone is restricting you to expand, it's the wrong environment, and it's okay to let go. But I think you gotta take your space and expect that you're gonna expand your space. And the people that cannot expand with you, they're not the people for the next chapter. And we go through seasons, and at the end of the day, that's where people go and new people come.
Welcome back to Create with Kate. I have an amazing guest today. I have Josephine Saffert on the virtual studio podcast today. She's a real estate developer out of Nashville, Tennessee, and she is originally from Germany and has just a phenomenal story. So I cannot wait for you guys to hear it. We're going to talk about everything from real estate to real estate education, building communities, building yourself, and so much more. So welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me on.
Okay, so you're a realtor, right? I'm
a real estate developer.
Real estate developer.
So primarily real estate developer, and actually just 3 weeks ago, a month ago, acquired a brokerage. So now we're vertically integrated.
Fantastic.
So we now have like 26 agents right now. And so we're in Nashville, Tennessee. So we're vertically integrated, but I also have Developer Academy, which is our coaching side. So we run ads and all that, the same thing probably as you guys like.
Tell me more about your coaching side.
Totally. So late last year, I founded Developer Academy, where we coach any real estate investor, wholesaler, and realtor on how to break into development. So it really takes them from A to C through it. We help them how to raise funds, how to really, find their first deal, and then also how to manage the, construction throughout. And so we're nationwide with members in San Diego. Houston is our sort of satellite office. Have like 3 there, Dallas, and then Ohio, Chicago. So it's all around. And so, that's been kind of, before the brokerage, so the latest addition to the business portfolio. And the rest I built townhomes, luxury here in Nashville. So I have a development investment firm. That's a bread and butter.
I love Nashville. I actually am trying to plan another trip out there. I have some family there, but I don't go there often. But it's and
please
I love.
Let me know when you are.
Yeah. Do you have a studio there too, where you guys are filming content?
I do have a studio in the office as well. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
This is actually right now not in my studio, but yeah. Mm-hmm.
I'm curious, like, how this all got started. So how long have you been in real estate, and is this what you saw yourself doing?
So I'm German. I essentially came through sports in 2011. So ran track and field, 400 meters, 400 hurdles. And so that was the first creative, financing gig. And that's how I learned about Nashville, the greater area. And then ultimately stayed through real estate. That's really how this all came about.
Okay, so that's interesting. So you're, you said 2011 you came here?
Initially, and then I traveled a lot from 2012 to 14. I lived in China in 2013 for about 3 months. And came back 2014 January, back to the Nashville area, and then 2016 moved to Manhattan and networked sort of that whole tech startup scene, learned how to raise capital, And ultimately, it was really about like the immigration journey for me that
Mhm.
led me to entrepreneurship so early, like pretty much within a year out of college. So I have a finance background, and I thought I was going to be an investment banker. Had an
Mhm.
offer on Wall Street after college, and then 4 months later, HR called me back and was like, "Well, we can't figure out immigrations for you. We can't sponsor you." And so that was a really harsh, break, because up until that point, everything that I had known was performance based. You always do the best you can. You always like show up, do your thing, and that just wasn't enough anymore. And so through that immigration process or journey, I found my way into entrepreneurship within that year. And so because tech startups take a while, right? Like they usually take a
Mhm.
minute, and they're more intangible. And so real estate for me just was the way to, basically more solidify and really create a sizable business faster. So I started flipping homes in Clarksville, Tennessee. So I moved back from New York here. So Nashville pulled me in like 3 times.
Wow.
I gave in, I believe, like, into that faith of just going along with it. It's kind of
Yeah,
like,
like
oh,
you were meant to be there, it sounds
yeah,
like.
yeah, yeah, totally. Yeah.
Um, wow, that's incredible. So, I mean, how old were you when you moved, from
So in a first,
Germany?
yeah, I was like 18. I just turned 19, I think. Yeah. This was August.
So,
And
what was that like? Because that, I mean, just that right there would be a lot to take in and, adjustments. And do you have family here or what does that look like now?
yeah, I don't have family here, so I'm still by myself. Family lives in Germany. But at the time, 2011, when I was 18, it was definitely a harsh sort of culture change. I think initially, a lot of Germans think that the culture is the same, that American culture and German culture are roughly similar, but I really don't think they are. I think there are a lot of nuances, and so it's just like that. You learn it like over time when you actually live here longer, right? And so in 2012, I mean, I moved back to Germany, studied there for about a year-ish, and sort of, did my study abroad, and then really wanted to come back again because I kind of like, realized that I just belong better into this culture here. Although I miss Germany, and all that, but the opportunity is just so great here.
So tell me some of the differences that you noticed in I mean, I've never been to Germany, so
Have you been to Europe?
no. I have
Oh,
so many places that I need to go.
I've got to make that happen.
I know. I mean, I'm getting close to being 40 now. I'm like, I gotta really make this happen.
Yeah.
But yeah, so tell me, what are the differences?
Yeah, I think Germans definitely are very reliable. I think overall, when we say we're going to do something, we're really going to show up and do it. And I think, sometimes in the South here, in Southern culture in the US, it's definitely a little bit more, you know, flying
Uh-huh.
by the pins. And, you got to really confirm, hey, are we still,
So
said.
they have more integrity in Germany, it sounds like, with
I
their
mean,
word.
I think it's just the work ethic is probably
Hmm.
just a little bit more serious, maybe in
Okay.
Germany, right? But then again, marketing and sales, I think in the U.S. is such an opportunity where I think Germans can still learn a lot from, and so
Hmm.
I just love the business opportunity here. I think I always refer to Nashville as an adult playground where you can just do whatever you want to do as long
Kind
as
of
you
like
feel.
Vegas.
Yeah, yeah, similar. I mean, yeah, Vegas is growing fast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. But so it's mainly the opportunity is really kind of what I'm hearing you say. It was mainly the business opportunity here versus Germany.
Yeah, I think as an entrepreneur, it's a lot more favorable building
Mhm.
businesses in the US than in Germany. I think Germany just has a lot more bureaucracy that prevents, people
Mhm.
from really being super entrepreneurial or even breaking into entrepreneurship. I come from a middle class family, so everything that I've done so far, I've done from scratch and really out of necessity, and I mean, at this point, um, I've grown multiple multi-million dollar businesses. And I think, I started when I was 24 about, and I'm 32 now. So,
Yeah.
and I've gone through definitely some severe ups and downs. So the last 6, 7 years have not been easy by any means. But at the same time, I think like it's really shaped me as like, as an executive and yeah, as a CEO.
That's honestly like really incredible. I mean, so obviously you're very smart and well educated, but like, what do you think aside from that, aside from you being smart, what do you think it takes with like the mindset and just um, habits and routines? Like, what do you need in your opinion to like to really be that successful? Because most people are not.
I think it has nothing to do even with being smart, to be honest. I think it has all to do with grit, perseverance, drive, willpower, and vision. So I think like, you can outwork the smartest person and be more successful, right? So for me, it's always been the drive and just not giving up. Like for me, there's not a plan B, right? There's
I love
always
that.
just like, hey, I'm
I'm
gonna
doing
run this. And yeah, I might fail forward, but at least say we learned a few things and then we're gonna do it different next time, right? I think as long as you learn from the mistake and you really don't repeat those, then you're always improving. So
Yeah.
I just really come from an abundance and growth mindset. That at the end of the day, I mean, we always make the decisions the best we can at the time, with the knowledge that we have. So we've just had a conversation with a friend, I think a week or 2 weeks ago, and it was about a specific deal. And I just said, like, man, we made the decision with the information that we had at the time. That's all we can do, and now we know. And next time, let's improve, right? But let's
Right.
move on. And so that's kind of how I live and what I look
Did
like.
you have parents that kind of instilled that in you, or how did you develop that mindset?
Yeah, I grew up very performance driven. My father, I would say, was very strict when it came down to track. So, I
Mm.
mean, I started track when I was 8, and then I did triathlon, I think the age of like 10 or 11 or so until 14. So, I mean, I trained a lot, and there was really not an excuse not to show up. And
Yeah.
then my mom was really more from the academic side, making sure that, you put your best effort forward there as well. So I would say my parents definitely instill the work ethic, the discipline, and that even when you don't feel like it, you still gotta show up because at the end of the day, you just gotta stay consistent.
Yeah.
So for sure, I think the way you grow up is super important as an entrepreneur. I think though too that my dad was really hard on me. So like when I
Mhm.
didn't really perform, he didn't speak with me. So like I was very drilled on that end. So I think like that's when you grow up and you work through all like the childhood things,
Sure.
you
Yeah.
kind of learn. Yeah, you
Well,
kind of
yeah, does
learn.
that did that affect? So I think most people don't typically have parents that are um, maybe their biggest fans. Like they're loving parents in most situations, but they're oftentimes incredibly like critical, or it's like, it's never enough, or they don't see your vision. So then it kind of diminishes people and their self-worth. So they have to overcome that, work through their childhood trauma. But in your case, it's like you had like a drill sergeant, right? um, Trainer. So in one aspect, I feel like that could be really good, but then it could be bad. Like if you didn't perform, then did you feel like you were unloved?
I think it helped our relationship big time by me moving to the US, and now I'm very, very close with my family.
Mm-hmm.
But I think my teenage years were not easy by any means because school was kind of second and sport was
Mm-hmm.
first. And so just by me even making the decision to go to the US, it was kind of like, hey, I'm going to do this my way.
Yeah.
My dad moved from Berlin down to the south. Also, he was a pole vaulter when he was
Okay.
young. So, I think he definitely had a lot of vision of himself also in like, really coaching me and
Mm,
like
yeah.
making sure that I'm like, going down the path of like setting myself up the best I can for success. But even the training group I was in at the time from 14 to 18, 19, I mean, they all were like great guys, very successful. We had some European champions and, just very successful 400 meter hurdle guys. And so I was for the longest I was the only girl in the group,
Wow.
and they were 8 or 10 years older than I was. So I think the way I grew up from like that age of like
Mhm.
14 to 18 was very important to everything that happened after.
Yeah. I mean, definitely like your dedication, and resilience is
Yeah.
probably on another level. You said like in the last 6 years, I think you said about 6 years, you had to overcome some things. What were some of those challenges?
Where do I start?
I don't
No,
know, maybe the first one.
yeah, it was really wild. I mean, at first, I mean, when I came on a full athletic ride, right? And then I came back the second time actually academically in 14. So I came back twice as an international student, which is pretty much unheard of. And then after I graduated, immigrations was a beast, was 3.5 years to work through. I built a business with a former business partner of mine, and we renovated properties and had really scaled this pretty quickly. We bought auction properties and REO, so bank owned property, and grew from Clarksville, Tennessee, Nashville, and Chattanooga, so middle and eastern Tennessee. And
Okay.
so U.S. Immigration Services came back and said, well, that's not a business because you're renovating properties, you're recycling value. So you're not building original value. And so that's really when I pretty much countered and asked them, so if I build original value, so new construction
Yeah.
on U.S. soil, hiring Americans, will that work for you? And that's really how I won my green card case. So I got my green card in January 2019 by basically, giving them exactly what they wanted to see.
So that's how you got into that.
That's how I stayed. Mm-hmm.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that was wild.
Yeah.
So that was that was a lot of adversity for sure along the journey. And then later that year in 2019, I kind of was able to breathe for the first time, right? Because it took 3.5, 4 years to immigrate. And then I really realized, the person I was in business with, it just wasn't healthy for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I tried to buy them out, wouldn't work. And so ultimately, I kind of pulled that plug of, we need to like figure this out. And then we ended up winding up the business. So in 2020, January, I kind of had lost everything that I had worked for. And so I had to start all over. So my company now, Sapphire Development Group, is just about 3 years old, really.
Okay.
And I had raised all the capital. So, at the end of the day, it was kind of my head that rolled. And just working through all of these items, deeply legal was really costly. And I've lost a lot personally on that. And it took also about almost 4 years. And it went from state to federal court. So I've seen how to even untangle a full development company. And because it's so asset heavy, it takes a longer time to unwind a partnership, right? So I could write a book on why not to do 50-50, but we kind of, we were young and dumb.
Yeah.
So.
Wow. Yeah. So are you on the personal side of your life? Like, are you married? Do you have kids, or is that part of your plan? If not?
I'm not married at this time. And
okay.
So we'll see. I think, ultimately, it's all about now, kind of insulating the businesses a little bit more to building the systems, automations. And so that, maybe down the road, that's going to be an option.
I mean, you're still young. You said you're 32 now?
Yeah.
Okay, maybe this would be a question people might want to know too. Because
How old are you?
I'm 37. Because you've worked so, which I can't believe. I'm 25 in my head. But you've worked so hard, and I mean, that's a lot, right? Like, do you even have time to really, I guess, have relationships or have fun is what people might be thinking.
Yeah. I think it's super important to have a balance. So I love to travel, travel a lot. Go back to Germany or to Europe about like 3 to 4 times a year. So that's kind of like the reward. Yeah. And, we host a lot of events, very social. So I think it's super important. I mean, everything we do, it's a people business backed by numbers in real estate here. So, totally. It's important to have fun. And I think I'm trying to do a better job of this, also just integrating it. I think I used to be very rigid, where I think now is already loosened up a whole lot more. So that's been part of the growth journey.
I love it. So as far as people go and, social media, how have you embraced social media, and how have you used it to really develop more relationships with
Yeah.
people?
Social media is so important. I think yeah, it's the future. I mean, we're super active. I have a whole team at this point that we like try to really engage a lot. I mean, because we have the Developer Academy where we coach realtors, wholesalers, investors, and how to break into real estate development.
Hmm.
We really are fostering those relationships deeply because we want to help more people and really utilizing actually development because you can build your own pipeline. There's so much, you know, um, potential in like kind of just strengthening your income, right?
Yeah.
You're kind of in different areas within real estate. So I think social media is sort of that platform to do that on, right? And I think it's cool too, I mean, we met through social media, right?
Right.
So
Yeah.
I mean, you're in Vegas and I'm in Nashville. So I think it's
Yeah.
just so cool to connect with other people from all over the world and across the country. And I would have never thought that, our academy very instantly went like nationwide. So now,
Hmm.
we're helping people in San Diego and, Chicago, Houston, or just Texas altogether. So it's been just fun to see that. But I think a lot of people haven't really figured out like social media where, I mean, you still got to be really social, right? Like that's because I sometimes I get
Right.
asked, like, oh, hey,
Yeah.
how do you grow an account? But it's like you got
Hmm.
to be social. Guess what? So
Yeah, just like you would in person, right? It's not
right,
just that you
right,
throw some posts up there, hire a team and then you don't engage,
right.
because yeah, that's not how you build those connections.
Yeah,
It's
I think
it's definitely interesting.
I think it's important to just also be really active in the DMs, right? Like to really connect with others, and I think that's an opportunity that a lot of people still don't take enough advantage of. I
Oh
think.
yeah, absolutely. Well, one thing that so I don't know what you know about our community, but so I work with Ryan Pineda, and he has two different education coaching programs. One on real estate, and mainly it's wholesaling and
Mhm.
flipping, and then the other one is on content creation and how to build your brand. And so I teach the content creation side of it. I coach our students in that area, and what they struggle with most. Once they kind of get going is they they struggle to talk about their personal values and hobbies, what things that matter to them. Like they might just be all real estate or whatever it is that they do, because
Mhm.
they're not all
Mhm.
in real estate, but they think that nobody wants to know about those details, but those are things that connect you with others and make you more
Right.
relatable. So you have to really have this nice blend of the personal as well as the business and showcasing your credibility and all of that. But uh, do you struggle with that, or like what has worked for you to maybe overcome that?
Yeah, I think we get a lot of questions around like immigrations or,
Mm-hmm.
even like kind of how do you hack your credit, like stuff like that, where it's more so like personal experience, right? And like sharing sort of how you got from point A to point B.
Right.
And so I love to share like, also the travels and different things. So for sure, I think lifestyle is important and kind of just like adding value, right? Like same as what you said earlier
Mm-hmm.
too. It's like an in-person conversation. I think so I always like tell my people too is like, think you're sitting at a bar and you're having this conversation, like, what do you want to know? And, that's sort of our brand. Our brand is very much like,
Mm-hmm.
hey, we really care. We really want to know about you. We want to know like what drives you, what are your fears? What like, it gets you going, why are you doing what you're doing? And more like relating in that way. So I think, our content for sure is very niche, right? I think real estate
Mm-hmm.
development is very niche, and we talk a lot about construction. There are
Yeah.
not many women talking about construction. So, for sure, we try to like also soften that, because if it's only about construction or like development, I think, yeah, it's a little bit one-sided, but it's super important to share about your life and who you are. People work with you because of you, right? And
Oh, right.
so,
Absolutely.
I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that what is working and will always work is great storytelling and really getting people to see. the transformation and the journey. Like people love to see that.
Yeah.
And we're seeing a lot of content that's performing well that is not highly edited. We're kind of seeing a
Mhm.
shift with that and is more authentic and raw and real. And just, what's great about embracing yourself and your story
Yeah.
is that it's unique to you. I mean, like I can't tell your story, right? Because I have
Right.
not done the things that you have done and I don't have the perspective that you have. And so when people can lean into that, they can really make some great connections. But what
Yeah.
I have found, and it's quite sad to me, is that, and I just looked up some numbers, but I think it said like 85% of Americans struggle with self-confidence.
Oh,
I'm like,
wow.
85%.
That's a lot.
Wow. That's a
Wow.
lot, right? And then
Mhm.
and then you kind of dissect that further, like, okay, well, why would people have low self-confidence? And it goes back to childhood, right? And like their
Yeah.
beliefs about themselves and what they're capable
Yeah.
of. So I think playing sports, that I'm sure is great because that
Yeah.
shows you what you are capable of, the teamwork, working hard, putting in the hours, seeing the payoff. So I mean, that's critical, I think, for kids to experience. But
Yeah.
but yeah, I just think so many people, they don't know how to do that inner work. Sounds like you've done a
True.
lot of inner work. How did you realize that was a priority? Like,
Yeah.
because most people just we don't learn that. So how
Yeah.
did
That's a
you
great
come to
question.
find?
Yeah. I think it's super important to tackle that. Um, I would say that it probably was really like over time. I think, when I first came to the US in 2011, 12, I'd met my, yeah, best sort of girlfriend in track, and still I'm godmother of her daughter,
Aw.
and super close. And I think so at the time when we met, she was very, very spiritual, and at the time I would say I was not. And so I
Okay.
think we really grew more towards each other. And I think we really had like learned a lot from each other. And then I think also realizing that there were still some other, maybe like two, three other people that I was very close with that were very successful, and just kind of like really having more deeper conversations with them and realizing, sort of like their journey and how they got to where they
Hmm.
were at. I mean, really close friend of mine is a two times Olympic athlete, and so just really learning from like also him, sort
Hmm.
of his mindset, how to push through, on things, but also like how to kind of give yourself more grace. And so I think it was more like really environment probably,
Hmm.
if I'm environment driven. It was very important for me, I think, being in the US versus in Germany. I think if I had never left Germany, I don't think I would be where I'm at anywhere remotely. Because I think, leaving that initial sort of comfort of like what
Hmm.
and then like making a life for yourself in another country, in another country, like on another continent.
Hmm.
And then, carving out your own space and reshaping yourself. I think that was sort of that probably process for me, having a lot of new experiences in a fast way too. So, I mean, I went to the US in 2011. I moved to China in 2013, was there for about 3 months. That was a completely like culture shock. And then coming back to Europe. So, just even having to adopt constantly. I mean, there was
Hmm.
probably a 6 year plus time frame where I was nowhere longer than 3.5 months anywhere. So I constantly traveled because even when I was in the US, I went back to Germany like as soon as the semester had ended. So I think it was a lot of like, exploration, a lot of travels,
Hmm.
changes of environments, changes of different cultures, people, asking a lot of questions.
Yeah.
And then also like really challenging myself, where do you fit in with all of that? And I think that was probably
Hmm.
2014, a very pivotal moment because, I'd seen so many different cultures. I mean, US, Europe, and China, vastly different, three different worlds.
Yeah.
And if I always refer to it, it felt like three different lives. And I was just like
Yeah.
21 years old, 22 years old. So I think, that kind of contributed to more finding maybe myself too. And then from that point forward, spending more time exploring, where are certain beliefs coming from,
Yeah.
and, starting sort of that inner work. But I think we all constantly still work on ourselves, right?
Mhm.
But I certainly am very aware, and constantly try to, you know, learn myself.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's really fascinating, and I agree with like changing up the environment, even though I don't
Mhm.
have an example like yours.
Mhm.
Um, and I certainly have a lot more places to see. Like that's my takeaway from hearing you say all of this. But changing your identity requires you to, yeah, put yourself
Mhm.
in new places and around different people, and then to discover what people, you feel aligned with. Because just because you were born into, say, a family, doesn't mean you have to adopt those same like beliefs.
Right,
Maybe those aren't aligned with you at the soul level, and you need to go in this direction,
right,
but the only way you would know is by having exposure to
right.
it. So,
So
yeah.
there's a really important nugget you kind of said is, I think that exposure piece. So when I, for example, started as an athlete, when you're in a college here, you raise like funds for some good cause, or you know, basically you're more like out there, as a team, like working things. So I think that was actually a new concept when I first
Mhm.
came, because in German culture, like we don't really like ask for money. We don't really like, even like
Okay.
fundraising altogether is very, I feel like, foreign, unless you're like a really large corporation, right? So it's really ironic that like today, I have an investment and development company, so
Yeah.
I raised capital when I first started.
Right.
That's how I got started. But I had to really learn this like at ground zero. And so just even like, I think if you're able to throw yourself into something and just
Mhm.
embrace that you don't know at this time how you're going to do it, but you're set to figuring it out, that's the
Mhm.
best path to grow.
I mean, was that incredibly uncomfortable for you if you
Oh
were
yeah,
not used to that?
initially,
Yeah.
absolutely. I think even 2011, when we first, as a track team, went into these areas and like, kind of like fundraise and whatnot, that was very uncomfortable, because in our culture, it just is not a thing,
Right.
so yeah, it definitely was very uncomfortable, I think, at first.
Yeah, so what I hear from you is like throw yourself into the most uncomfortable situations, go to an entirely new place, and just figure things out, because that's how you grow like at a rapid rate.
Yeah, I mean, it's intuition. It's
Yeah,
intuition. You got to go with your gut. If you
I
think,
totally
yeah,
agree with that. But most people struggle to follow their intuition.
it's true, because I think we get distracted, and I think
Mhm.
we probably doubt ourselves, because, I mean, people are like, "What do you think? What do you think?" So there's so much
Mhm.
value placed on someone else's thought,
Yes.
although you're your own steward.
Oh, yeah, that's good. That's so true. Yeah. But
Right,
I think, and that goes back to the low self-esteem too, I think, because if you had high self-esteem, then you would trust
right,
your intuition,
right.
and regardless of the opinions of others, right?
But I think only that high esteem or self-esteem comes when you've had experiences where trusting yourself proved you right, or
Mm,
treated you well. So I
yeah.
think when like there's not enough evidence of like yourself having had the experience that that was the
Hmm.
best call, that's the tricky part, right? So when I
Right.
went through the legal battle, I think this is a very interesting experience share, maybe that could be helpful for a lot of people. So I was very young. I mean, when I first went into this legal battle, I was 27.
Yeah.
And, you know, at the time, I didn't even know the US legal system really.
Hmm.
Um, and so I thought, okay, well, I need all these experts, right? I need like, to listen to these attorneys, because they know like how to figure this out, right?
Hmm.
And while attorneys are great at legal advice, one should never ask business questions to an attorney. But at the
Hmm.
same time, when you're really young and you're trying to figure something out, business and legal is very much married, right?
Yeah.
So I feel like, I probably approach it from a standpoint of like, business advice, therapist, and legal counsel.
Mm-hmm.
And so there was a really big mistake probably early on where I tried to where I thought I had to rely on experts that already have dealt with these situations. But in reality, that's just not the case. Every situation is different.
Right.
You're different. You have a different background, and everybody's trying to do different things. So, I should have just really trusted myself a lot
Mm-hmm.
more, and I would have been a lot better off altogether. And I think a lot of times, even now, when we coach others, it's really important to have coaches and to have guidance and be in the right environment. But you never should only trust someone's opinion because they are basically labeled an expert
Right.
over your own intuition.
Sure.
Your own intuition has to be the North Star, and then everything else follows.
Yeah, I agree. I think that so our community is very, most of us are Christians. And so that's been kind of, that prayer and just following Jesus is really kind of like the North Star in our community. And I can say for myself, I was always a believer, but didn't have a intentional practice and relationship. It was just kind of, more spiritual, I would say.
Yeah.
And then once I started to get more intentional with prayer and that relationship, which was probably a couple of years ago, well, maybe more now, but that's when things really started to change for me. So I do think it's really important to believe in a higher power of some,
Agree.
and because it's like you have to trust yourself, but then you have to almost trust. I think it's even bigger than that, right? It's like, it's not just
100%.
you. It's like your creator, whatever you believe that to be.
Yeah, I believe in a higher power too. I think just obviously I'm very international, so on my end, I just always try to make it very inclusive.
Yeah.
But I think it's super important to spend time with really figuring that out for yourself, because I think there's so much clarity that comes with it. And I do believe that whatever we do, it's larger than just us, right? Because, otherwise, you couldn't. That's a whole other conversation.
Right.
But yeah.
No, absolutely. I think that, there's so many things I love just studying human beings and what makes us, tick. It's really fascinating to me. So is there some piece of advice that you would give to somebody wanting to get online and create? What would you tell them if they have this fear of judgment?
I think really doing it for yourself, really thinking about okay, what's your vision? How do you want this to look, and why, right? What feeling is it giving you? And then just really focusing on how you can add value, even if it's to your younger self, and just really dive into that and forget about the audience, because at the end of the day, it's not even about the audience. It never is. It's only about engaging with another, person, basically. And this piece by piece, it's just at some point it adds up to be a lot of people, right?
Sure.
But it's more private. I think make it just really, really good about, adding value to something that you always wanted to know, or something that, you can help someone with, and honing in on that and focusing, being very clear messaging wise. I think just finding your niche and then really owning that, whatever brand, setting or style you're going for. If you always show up pink, great, love that.
Yeah.
So let's just let's own that, right? But find your own online voice that sort of is maybe is yourself, an authentic voice who you are, but maybe in an online way where you feel comfortable with what you're sharing, right? Because I don't share super deeply personal things. I think on my social media platform, but I'm very vulnerable. I am. I mean, I share
Mhm.
like I'm an open book on like anything business and
Yeah.
anything like personal experience there, right?
Yeah.
So and just finding sort of what you're comfortable with and then just own that.
Yeah, no, I think that's great advice. Is there someone that you follow that kind of inspires you with like how they show up online?
Yeah. I love Leila Hamosi.
Me
She's
too.
awesome. She's awesome. She's a beast. I think she owns just that true online authenticity.
Mhm.
I'm saying online just because like, of course, like she still has a private life, right? And
Yeah.
so it's still just sort of what she's comfortable with. And I think her messaging is very good. I think she connects very easily with a lot of women,
Hmm.
uh, and yeah, so I love
I
her.
really like her content too. I've actually been, well, I mean, I study a lot of content
Yeah,
with what I do. And so she is one that I study frequently
yeah,
just because it's so, well, what I love about her stuff is it's very take action. Like, go
right,
take action. Like, I'm going to tell you exactly, like,
right,
this is what you need to do. It's like a key takeaway. Like, go do it, go execute. Like,
right,
it's, you don't have to be perfect. And I love that attitude.
yeah,
And I think we need more women like that because
agree.
I have an
Mhm.
issue with, and I don't know if this is just in America. I don't know. I obviously need to do some traveling, but women being, yeah, I believe in women being feminine, but I don't agree with like, oh, well, can't be super successful and be a powerhouse and have that too. Like I think you can have both.
I think
And
I think as women we can have it all. I think it's just
yeah,
like being cool with owning it. I think that's I think it's just like claiming it. And I
yeah.
think
Oh,
everybody's had an
okay.
issue with that, because when I first started, I mean, I had like a YouTube channel like literally 8 years ago, which like at the
Yeah.
time was super embarrassing videos. Like that was not the kind of quality that it is today. And I actually just until
Let's go to
recently
the
realized
YouTube right now.
yeah, well, funny enough, up until about a few weeks ago, I realized that this is actually still up or was up. Now
Oh,
it's
did you delete it?
no, we just like took some things private,
Oh,
but
okay.
no, but at the time it was just an experiment. At that time it was just like, okay, we're gonna do this. It was all about like finance and whatnot, but like still, but now looking back at it, I'm like, oh my God. But the content was really good, It
Hmm.
just was like that it's not what we today, would expect in terms of quality and whatnot,
Yeah.
production quality and so on. But I think like that experiment back then had just like massively helped in just shaking it off in terms of
Hmm.
just doing it, right?
Yeah.
And so over the years, I mean, just gotten so much more comfortable. And there was a really long way because as a German, German culture, we don't really like share things
You're more
necessarily. It
private.
doesn't come natural. Yeah, we don't
Uh-huh.
necessarily share like too much, right? And
Right.
so I think my family even had,
An
many
issue with
years
it.
now, yeah, had many years of
Yeah.
adapting to like, okay, hey, I am pretty public on things and I, say what I think and
Yeah.
whatnot. But at the time, like 8 years ago, that was not like really a
Hmm.
thing. So it's still more taboo. And so I love also now listening to more German podcasts because, they're just opening up so much more than what it was when
Yeah.
I grew up in that culture. So I think, to your point, I think like, just kind of like owning like that authenticity, making it more raw. And it doesn't need to be perfect. And you just gotta show up and, it's about what you say and what value you're adding and not
So,
necessarily how something looks.
so what would I like that you said, because I think this is another big problem, is parents or family
Yeah,
members that don't agree with your presence maybe online because they don't
100%.
understand it or
Yeah,
well, there could be a number of reasons, right?
yeah,
How do you keep that relationship intact but keep moving forward with your goals and your dreams?
yeah. I actually have a quick experience share on this. So, a really dear friend of mine, she's German, wrote a book, amazing book. And so another girlfriend and I, we really had, pushed her to publish it. And she was very afraid to publish it initially. And at the end of the day, she ended up publishing it. And and super proud of her. And her family ended up pretty much abandoning her. And she struggled with this like really big time. And I think still to this day, it was the right call for her to publish this book.
Mm-hmm.
And it was very, very important for her in so many levels. And even having walked with her through that experience and like really seen like the pros and cons and just, that whole like thought process, I just believe like you gotta be who you are. And if someone is restricting you to expand, it's the wrong environment, and it's okay to let go. But I think you gotta take your space and, expect that you're gonna expand your space. And the people that cannot expand with you, they're not the people for the next chapter. And we go through seasons, and at the end of the day, that's where people go and new people come.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, they can't expand with you, or they're restricting you. What did you say? They're restricting you from being who you are and the expansion of who you are, then that they're not meant to be in the space. Yeah.
Just as an entrepreneur, when we meet in like 2 years from now, I expect you to have expanded, right? Anybody around you has to be ready to expand with you. If they're not, then like I'm very quick in letting go. If I notice that someone is not conducive to like expansion and like growth, then we cannot walk together. Like it's great to know them, and great to have had a season, but it's just like not something that like I would entertain going forward. So I'm very conscious on environment and just really finding people that are wanting to grow, that are wanting to expand themselves. And I think it's so much more fun to be around people that constantly are looking to be the best version of themselves and are looking to figure things out, solving really big problems. That's like, I want someone to challenge me as well, right? Like, and
Absolutely.
I want people to be okay when they get challenged, just because there's an opportunity to be better together.
Yeah, that took me many years to learn.
Everybody. It takes everybody many years.
I just feel like I was so good at being a chameleon, right? Like I would just fit in, or even shrink. I would shrink to fit in with my environment and the people in my life. And I almost, well, not even almost, I didn't expand because I didn't want to make other people feel uncomfortable.
100%. But isn't that a female problem? I think that's a female problem. And I think Layla talks about it too. I think, especially when we realize, hey, we really have a unique value to add to, wherever we are. I think we have an immediate tendency to shrink. I like the word shrinking that you're using. To basically adapt to like a smaller mindset.
Right.
And I think that's why I love her content as well. That's just so important to not even, allow that to happen. But it also sometimes takes like another good friend to say, hey, this is what's happening, right? Again, it's like that mix where someone calls it out as well. Hey, like you got to be bigger.
Yeah, for me, it was like strangers that would say things, and they would stick, in my mind. That's why I'm so big on one video can change someone's life. And you even said it. It's like, don't think of the audience. You think of the one person that needs this message, because one person is going to be watching. And if you can help one person, you can help many. But I had this guy that I used to work for Starbucks coffee company, and he was a customer, and he really was the one that got me to just get curious about other possibilities. And he would just say things about, he'd ask me good questions and get me to think. And so I think it's just really important to make constant connections wherever you are. And you just don't know who you could be placed in front of that you could make an impact. And as you know, you meet someone in one setting, and 10 years down the road, maybe you're doing, a deal together, or they're
Yeah.
investing in this or that. And the more connections that you have, the better, because you
Yeah.
can all help and serve each other. But yeah, I don't know. I love people. I don't know where I was going
No.
with that now.
No,
What started us talking about that,
I, I
making
agree
me
with you. I
think
think the
differently.
conversation. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I love to study also like Stoicism and like philosophy.
Oh,
So
yes.
that the daily Stoic, I mean, for any believer,
Uh-huh.
like for anybody that like really spiritual, like I think the daily Stoic is amazing. Just because like I think it aligns a lot of things and puts perspective.
Hmm.
To sort of like really long known, cause and effects even, and like just
Yeah.
laws, right? But I think the law of attraction is something that right now in the last month has been a really big influence, especially like throughout this economy change.
Hmm.
I think, you see people's true colors coming out,
Yeah.
and just really remaining steady in your lane and who you are, and making sure that you're attracting what you really want to attract
Hmm.
is such a lesson. Um, yeah, so I think it's important to pick up the study of these different, laws and beliefs, and
Yeah.
and really dig deeper in order to kind of find where you're at within all of it.
In this economy, this will be my last question, and then we'll wrap up. But like in this economy, having an abundance mindset,
Mhm.
right, could be a challenge for people. What do you say? Because there's always ups and downs, right? Like that's life, right? So I find with even a lot of entrepreneurs, they will have an abundance mindset, or say they have one, but then if you really dig deeper, they don't, and they
Mhm.
still have that scarcity in there. And I'm sure you always have a little bit, probably never entirely goes away. But I mean, what advice do you have for that, of holding on to that abundance mindset so you can attract, what you want to attract, in times of uncertainty?
Mhm. I think it's the practice of reminders, manifestation, really, having sort of throughout your day, just like reminders, whether it's on your phone, whether it's on the mirror, whatever works for
Hmm.
you. Um, Having a little practice around it, and just maybe reminding yourself also on your vision, and like really getting super clear, like having a picture in your mind,
Yeah.
and like making that your reality. As long as you make your vision really your reality, then nothing can really shake that, right? But we
Hmm.
only like get distracted when we kind of get shaken up. And so I think just constantly being reminded of what your vision is, and to make that your present reality
Hmm.
is a really big piece to staying on course. Of course, we all get tested, right? But then again, it kind of comes back to, do you have a support system, like maybe an
Right.
environment where you can call someone up, and also they remind you, or like or something catches you to think again,
Come
how
back
you
to
want to
it.
be.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think I've had a great people in my life that then would also say, hey, like, you chose this, you know why you're doing
Hmm.
it, and it always going to come together, you just got to be patient, right? So stuff
Yeah.
like that, I think, like, it's so important, who you surround yourself with, and then figuring out your own practice around it.
So 32 right now. At 35, what's the vision for 35? I know I said that. I
Mhm.
was going to ask you the other one last, but it just made me think, what
Yeah.
is the vision?
Yeah. Um, well, the vision for 35 is to have a very systematized business overall. That's
Okay.
something that we're pushing for right now extremely hard, and also having a little bit more like a work-life harmony,
Hmm.
where, just the travel is very much integrated, because we have a well-oiled machine,
Hmm.
I'm able like to do more, a lot
Yeah.
more efficient, right, and a lot happier. I think that joy is so, so important. I think, because I spent definitely, 8+ years in sort of a fight or flight mode,
Yeah.
It's really, really important to me that, peace of mind is protected. And so I think the next, 3 years are very much focused on, how can we make sure that we further insulate, like, the companies. We want to help more people, how can we do that?
Hmm.
And just, you know, ultimately building a bigger community. I think that's what
Yeah.
it boils down to, because everything we do is people driven, right? I mean, we're a
Mhm.
housing provider, and we help, people learn and break into development and help them build portfolios. So everything has to do with people. So I think the better we get in connecting with people,
Mhm.
learning about them, everything else will naturally fall in place. So yeah, the vision is just like really to integrate, um, yeah, the travel, also with the business.
Do you want to be like a speaker or anything like that, or write a book, or do you have any of those types of goals like a lot of entrepreneurs?
Yeah, definitely. I think I could. Yeah, at this point, I could write a couple books there.
You could for sure write a book. Yeah.
But I think definitely would love to speak more. Would love to do a conference. I just actually this year started to go to conferences. You and I were talking about this earlier.
Yeah.
Went to Brandon Turner's. That was like one of the first conferences. I
He's
just
so kind.
Yeah, and I just, I think that's just like this year through also the academy that
Hmm.
a whole another like world opened up, and that's also through more connections, right? Like across the
Hmm.
nation. So I would love to, help more women, help more people overcome adversity and become entrepreneurs, take
Yeah.
charge, and take control of their lives. So
I
any way
love
we can
that.
do that.
I really love your brand. I think it's so dynamic, all of these things, like, because you can speak to being uncomfortable, getting out of your comfort zone, on a different level, right? Like just going to another country, 18, and then everything that you had to overcome. Like you literally had to fight to stay here and to think outside of the box. Which is those are all great things that you need to have that skill set as an entrepreneur. So, and then like to break into a space that's male dominated, to achieve what you've achieved at such a young age, like, I mean, just there's so many different things. Like, I think it's really, really cool. And I'm so glad that we got connected. We're like, we don't even know how it happened. I mean, we know through social media, but it's, your team, my team, and whatever else. And so
It
it
was
was meant
supposed
to
to
be.
be.
The stars
Yeah.
were aligned. Yeah.
It totally was meant to be. No, thanks so much for having me on too. No, really love chatting with you. And again, it's been sort of the entrepreneurial boot camp, and I just hope that by having gone through all of this, that it also will help others. And
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Do you want to are you open to being on other podcasts? Because one thing I love to do too is, connect people that I know, like because I can think of 10 people probably right now that you would be a great guest on their podcast.
Yeah, I would love to. I mean, again, I think this is our first podcast where we're really talking about more women and entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
Everything else so far has been very much like real estate development, real estate, real estate,
Yeah.
real estate. So, absolutely would love to connect with others that are, talking about various different topics.
As a coach, and someone that studies this, I would highly encourage you to lean into more of that, because your story is so unique and so good. If you I mean, you could create content on getting uncomfortable and then
Yeah,
tying that back to, how that has applied to what you do and how it's so critical for being an entrepreneur.
yeah.
And you could reach like so many people in that way. Yeah, I think that would be my angle with you, is just like how to get
Well,
uncomfortable, how to like being uncomfortable, and then giving all those examples of how you just constantly put yourself in new environments and
mm,
challenge yourself. And then the sports, being an athlete, and how that being a great athlete and an entrepreneur, those kind of go hand in hand.
yeah.
So yeah, there's just so many angles. I think it's really cool.
Yeah, I appreciate your thoughts on it. I mean, we're definitely trying to shape it, more
Yeah.
and more. And I think someone else also mentioned to lean more also into the female side. And I think I struggle a little bit with that just because we are so much in like a male like dominated world, like in terms of like
Hmm.
more like on the investment side and all that. Obviously, the brokerage and all of that is definitely more equal. But yeah, I think again, I said on like owning a niche, and
Hmm.
and I think we definitely can further like probably niche down. And I
Yeah.
love your thoughts on that. That's a great idea.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's even, you can even tie it into development of like building your foundation as a human, right?
Yeah,
And that is how you can build this community and these
right.
homes, right? Like, but you have to start with the foundation first, which to me, that's what your story says, is that you were foundationally strong, which at a young age. And I think that's incredibly rare, especially
Hmm.
in America. I think there's 27-year-olds that live at home with their
Hmm.
parents, and it's like no big deal, you know. um Culturally, I feel like that's more accepted, and you pushed yourself from a young age with sports, so you learned that skill, but then you were able to like you just saw different things, you got very curious, and then you tried to put all those pieces together, and you never backed down when it was scary. And I think that's like, that's a great freaking story, you know? I'm
No,
like,
I
I love
really
it.
appreciate your thought. I guess I've never heard someone like put together in terms of like financially strong. Definitely,
Yeah.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
what I hear. I'm like, it's just,
mm,
yeah, you're a developer, but you're like, you know how to develop from the inside out. So that is a skill many people don't have, and we need to learn. Like, that's my mission, is to help people see what they're capable of, because I
yeah,
do not subscribe to, well, if they were, born into this or that, then they can't be this. Well,
right.
maybe they might not know that. I mean, it might not be exposed to it yet, but they are capable. They're capable. And
Agree.
I don't like that
Yeah,
messaging of, you have to stay small. So
right.
I think, yeah, we need more people like this spreading that
Yeah.
word. So
No,
anyway,
really
thank you
appreciate
so
it.
much.